Oh, welcome, my friends. See if anyone's still awake. See if anyone watched that vice presidential debate tonight. I know I watched at least the first half of it and kind of got bored throughout. Let's see. We got one viewer right now. Oh, mighty one. Doesn't tell me who it is, but that's fine. Oh, on Twitter. Let's see. Vice presidential debate. What did I notice? And if you're here, please comment and I'll see it and I can respond to it either through audio or through text. But would love to have a conversation with you. Okay, let's see. Vice presidential debate. What I noticed is that I have very high expectations of the rhetoric skills or the oratory skills of the speakers. I think I noticed this for the last couple of years as I've watched debates that I get very disappointed when they'll say blah, 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 but, and then just negate everything they said before the but. I mean, I noticed it at least 3 times in this debate where they said something like, I really care about this woman who lost her life and this and that, but your tax policy, et cetera, et cetera. And I was just like, you can care about both. You can say, I care about what happened to this woman, and I also care about this other thing. So, but again, maybe it's just me having too high of expectations for these people as debaters, as conversationalists, as persuaders, as orators. Maybe they are much better as marketers. Maybe people who really do well in politics these days are much better at tweeting to their audience or speaking just to their own audience and not engaging in deeper dialogue. Maybe they never have. I don't know. I don't understand the beast that is the political machine, but maybe I just get really nitpicky on language and communication styles and skills. I found both of them to be quite condescending towards each other in a way and patronizing in some ways. Definitely a lot of passive aggression. Kind of, what do they call it? Shade. I mean, it's passive aggression, same stuff. And I just want a conversation. Maybe part of it's the format, right? And people are talking about, well, how do you get the people to not to finish when their time is up? And I'm like, from a workshop standpoint, from a facilitator standpoint, it's really hard to get somebody to stop at a certain time limit, and it's really uncomfortable to jump in, and it's really uncomfortable to jump in and say, "Oh, excuse me, sir, vice president or senator, or could you stop?" It doesn't work very well. What I've found in workshops that works better is setting a specific timer on a phone or a watch, and then when it ends, like a countdown timer of maybe 2 minutes, when it ends, it goes and keeps beeping until the person shuts up. I find it works very well. It's a bit annoying, but it gives more transparency into when the time ends, and it's not as if the human is jumping in and cutting off the time. It shows everyone that we're on the same page. And it doesn't worry about the embarrassment of interrupting and cutting somebody off. Somebody mentioned in the comments about cutting the mics off at 2 minutes. I think that could work as well. And especially if it was an automatic cutoff, because I think that element of making the judgment to jump in and interrupt can be a very difficult emotional decision to make in the moment, especially with that many people watching. I've seen many facilitators in small workshops of, I mean, even a small group circle of maybe 4 people. It's more like a square, but still, even in like a square of people rotating, giving 2 minutes to speak each, I find that the facilitator doesn't want to jump in or hesitates to jump in. So I think there are ways to make the 2-minute format work better. But honestly, I don't even want to watch a 2-minute format. I want to watch two people have a conversation for 90 minutes, one-on-one, interacting with each other. I actually don't want a moderator. If there's a moderator, I want them to be almost like a referee in a boxing match. If we're going to use the boxing match, let's go all the way with the analogy. But I want two people to have a conversation and one person to be there to monitor, to make sure it doesn't go outside the ring or it gets too violent or things like that. Because I don't really like this idea where two people are on stage talking to a third party and they almost never talk to each other. And when they do talk to each other, it gets cut off because the time limits. I really just want to see them talk to each other and how they interact with each other and how they maintain a conversation. And I think it would be really good for the American people and for people around the world to watch this, because I think this is what so many of us are struggling with at home, is how do we have these political conversations and do it in a way where we still care about each other? It's like the question that the 8th grader asked at the end of the debate of, it just seems like everybody's arguing all the time and people don't like each other and all this conflict, etc., that she sees in politics. I would love to watch an example of how we could do it well. How to have a political discussion about things that are very important and matter to a lot of people and still be loving towards each other. And I think when we talk with that third party, with that moderator, it doesn't model what happens in our homes. I mean, sometimes that happens where we have a third party and we're both complaining to the third party about the other person, but it doesn't often reconcile situations. Sometimes, and I mean, maybe in mediation settings, it works better than others, or negotiation settings and things like this. But I want to see two people have an honest conversation with each other. Somebody chimes in and says, like the beer event that Obama had early in his presidency. I'm not familiar with it, but it sounds much more like that. Something that's a little more humane, or just more natural, like we would normally do, like two people just sitting down and having a conversation. Because then they could respond to each other, then they can come up with questions on the fly, then they can look at each other's face and see each other in the eyes. It's a lot easier to attack somebody when you're looking at somebody else, right? If I look over here and I start talking trash about somebody, I mean, in theory, because I'm looking at a camera or looking off the camera. But if I look over to the side and start, talking trash to somebody over here, and I'm talking it this way, it's not the same as when I say it and I see the pain and the hurt in the person's face when I say it. I think as somebody, as Mortega mentions here in Twitter, that it could be a lot more respectful to have a conversation like that, where it's one-to-one. It could massively go out of control as well. It could be shouting, it could be name calling, it could just be over the top. But I'd like to try it. Some people have talked about candidates going on the Joe Rogan show and talking with him. I worry that it would still have that third party conversation aspect, like a triangle instead of a line segment. Here I am going with all these geometric shapes tonight. But yeah, so I think a lot of what we're seeing in these debates comes out of the structure of the debate as well. And I just they're not really debates for me. They're more just kind of speaking points. They're just side-by-side interviews. I don't want to hear any more interviews. I've seen so many interviews on TV where people just avoid the question. I want to see like maybe a mutual interview where they interview each other nonstop for 90 minutes. Let's see if they can go for 90 minutes talking to each other. Because what I've seen so often in life, in my life, in personal and business relationships, is that when the conversation is allowed to mature, it goes through all these different emotional phases. It can get really angry at times, and get sad, and get really divisive and bitter. It can get calm and quiet and kind of dance back and forth and eventually resolve. A lot of the times, the key to resolving a conversation is just staying in the fight. I took a workshop on leadership development, and this guy, George Kohlreiser, who led the workshop, He's a former hostage negotiator and also psychologist. He teaches leadership now at it's a university out in Sweden. I think it's Switzerland. I think it's IMD. And he, one of the things he said about hostage negotiation is that one of the worst things that can happen is for the conversation to stop. Try to keep the person on the line. Try to keep the person on the line. Continue the conversation. Keep talking. And when I look at these debates, there's not a lot of talking back and forth. It's just kind of shouting out their points to the news interviewer. I don't know. Am I the only person? Would other people want to see this? It just seems like it would be more authentic in a way to watch them converse with each other than to watch them converse with a journalist. I noticed another comment. I believe that lack of acknowledgement of receipt of the message before responding is the issue. I mean, I would agree. Let's see, I believe a lack of acknowledgement of receipt of the message before responding. I think sometimes they do acknowledge it, but then go, but I wonder how that plays out in a one-on-one conversation, because with the moderation, the moderator redirects the conversation sometimes very drastically to a new topic and doesn't let the story play out. And it doesn't let somebody call the other person out for not acknowledging it, like you're mentioning, Mortega. It's this idea that, you know, if I ask you a question and you don't answer, and then the moderator says, okay, next topic. It's like, well, no, he didn't answer the question. I want to continue that thread. Let us go on that thread. Maybe it's too organic or too flexible for TV. I don't know. I notice a lot of TV nowadays wants to have very strict structure on how it proceeds. Maybe they're afraid of what might happen in a live conversation like that, like the old Johnny Carson shows, which seemed a little more unstructured, or like the show, which is strongly unstructured. I mean, here's the structure for tonight. What else are y'all thinking? Any more comments? I would appreciate more comments there. I'll keep talking about some stuff if you don't have anything. I got a laughter. It's apple cider with sparkling water and a little bit of rum, because why not? So I noticed there were a lot in these debates where it seems that both sides will often say that the other group doesn't care about you. I think Senator Harris said something like, they're coming for you, they're coming for you. I think she was talking about healthcare, people with pre-existing conditions, if I remember correctly. But what struck me was that language. They're coming for you. They're coming for you. It's like they're going to get you. They're out to get you. They're out to like destroy your life. I guess I'm just really tired of this attitude that people on the other side are trying to ruin my life. I mean, people are open to believe whatever they want to believe, but I know that when I believe that, I feel miserable. When I think that people don't care about me, when I think people think that I'm stupid, or when I think people are actively trying to ruin my life, I feel miserable. And it's not like I hear it just from some people. I hear it from a lot of people in terms of politics. Even I would say like well, I mean, it just depends on which group you want to demonize and call an enemy, you know, or call a bad person or a bad apple. Maybe it's just I don't believe in that theory so much. We sometimes do bad things. I remember telling this to a guy once. I was taking like a Lyft or an Uber in LA, and the guy, He said to me, "Oh yeah, he was a driver." He said, "Oh yeah, I just got out of jail and this and that." I said, "Oh, okay, cool." He said, "Oh yeah, I'm a bad guy." I said, "No, you're a good guy who did some bad things." And he was just like, "What?" he just turned like, "Huh?" And I think, what would it be like if our leaders talked that way? I'm trying to do my small part by having these conversations here. And I'm very grateful to people who have showed up. It's only a few people right now, but who knows? There may be more people in the future. But regardless, just to have that conversation we got an Aldix, we got a more I don't know how to pronounce Twitter usernames on out loud. Mortega and Aldix. There was one point in the debate where the 8th grader asked the question about how do we get better as leaders? How do we do this? And something about Harris's answer struck me. And she basically said, "You, the 8th grader, you're the leader." And for me, I'm thinking, she's asking you to be the leader. Or I don't know if the 8th grader was a female or not, but the 8th grader was asking the leaders to be the leaders, the adults, the authority figures, the ones who are running the country, to be the leaders, to set the example. I'm not saying that the 8th grader can't be a leader as well, but that person wants to look up to someone and wants to model their behavior after someone. I agree that we can have leaders that are youth, but I think adults can lead as well. I think so many of us learn how to communicate. So many of us. I think almost all of us learn how to communicate mostly through our parents or through the people who raised us. We learn our languages through them. We learn how to negotiate, how to ask questions, how to apologize, how not to apologize, how to thank people, how to suggest things, how to do all these different speech acts and in nonverbal communication tics through the people that raise us. So this idea that the young person is the leader may not follow in some situations. Now, sure, I think parents learn from their children as well. But this idea is like, how do we set the example for the people that come after us? And as Mortega says, the response being, acknowledging that the person is a future leader. And I acknowledge that, and I hope for that as well. And how do we set that example so that 8th grader has the blueprint or has already learned a lot of the skills, and maybe even more importantly, feels motivated to be that leader in the future? When I was growing up, I had a lot of role models that really, they didn't know they were role models for me, right? Isn't that how it always works? Like mentors that don't know they're mentors. But I loved watching Jerry Rice play football. I loved Michael Jordan. I played the trumpet. I really appreciated Louis Armstrong and the energy that he brought. So I looked up to some of these people, and they inspired me to want to be like them. I mean, that's the the cliche, be like Mike. So yes, that these people can be the future leaders, and they can still be leaders now. And we can be leaders for them as well. We can we can be tough and also be loving. This dichotomy between being, I'm either tough or I'm loving. Oh, you're too loving, that means you're soft. No, loving doesn't necessarily mean someone's soft. I would rather have someone loving, actually, no, I like the combination of being tough and loving. But who's modeling that for us in politics right now? Comment, Aldix says, sat through the whole debate with my 9th grader, and he said, wow, there's a lot less yelling today. Yes, there was. There was a different form of communication. And for many of us, it seemed a lot more civil, I would say. It actually went more into the topics and there's plenty of interruption. My mom was even counting. I think she said at one point, the moderator said like 7 times to try to get Pence to stop interrupting. And I think she did maybe 2 or 3 times for Harris. But this idea that like, it was a little more civil. It was definitely not as loud and kind of openly aggressive in some ways, but there was a lot of passive aggression. Oh, hey. And there was a lot of anger that was being expressed through smiles, if that makes sense. And it's okay to be angry, but I don't know. I guess I just wish somebody would say, listen, I feel angry when you say that, instead of rah, or throw in some shade, as they say these days. Let me see what else we got in the comments. Neither. Exactly. So, Mortega says something about neither properly responded to the question, speak towards principled collaboration. If we're trying to resolve the conflict that's going forward, we have to work together. Thank you for tuning in there, Eldix. Got to run. Great job. Thank you so much. If we want to resolve the conflict, we got to work together. And I mean, we can try to compete against each other, but part of me says, well, what's the point of even calling it the United States of America if we don't actually want to be united anymore? Shouldn't being united be the goal? And to unite, doesn't mean we have to agree on everything, but we at least have to think that we're on the same team. And I think they tried to say it at the end, where like, oh yeah, we're Americans. We don't really hate each other as much as we do, or as it looks. But they didn't seem like they wanted to go out and get a beer with each other afterwards, or go share dinner with each other, even if it weren't COVID. It just, I don't get that friendly vibe from them, not towards me, but towards each other, if that makes sense. And maybe it's hard to do. Maybe politics is just becoming really brutal and vicious in some ways. Maybe it's always has been. I had an episode a couple days ago, maybe last week, talking to a friend of mine, James D'Angelo, and he was talking about how transparency in Congress, this push for like the Sunshine Reform Act, and basically opening up committee meetings and opening up committee votes and opening up that process, has led to a lot of intimidation and a lot of attack ads. And, I can't imagine emotionally what it may be like to be a politician and have almost every single part of my life scrutinized and ripped apart in front of millions of people. And I think it's easy to lose sight of just how much we're asking of these people. I started off this conversation talking about how much I expect these politicians to be so good at rhetoric. And maybe I hold them to too high of a standard, that I'm expecting some superhuman, perfect being to waltz through the door and be the example for me. I don't know. It's I mean, I'll say it again because the conversation with James really touched me the other day. This idea of giving them more space in Congress to resolve conflict behind closed doors. Because it's very hard. It's hard enough to fight with somebody that we care about and resolve conflict one-on-one in the privacy of our own homes. It is really hard to do that in public. And I'm just talking about doing it in a cafe in front of other people. it's a whole different story doing it in front of millions of people watching on television or on the internet, where you have lots of people on the internet who can chime in, who could rally you on, or who could attack you. And it's like a, million person versus million person battle on the internet sometimes. And so I want to pause and say just how much I respect that they're willing to get up and do that. Because I know so many of us would feel paralyzed if we were put into a situation like that. How many of you would want to get up on stage and debate about your character in front of the whole country, if not world? Mortega says nope. Yeah, I agree. It's... Oh, I got a shout out. We got a Tariq in the building. But it's... What are y'all thinking about? I've been talking a lot. What else is on your mind? We got some Harris's won, Pence lost. Yeah, I mean, I guess I wish it weren't a situation where it was a winning or losing, but it was people working together to resolve a conflict. Gosh, how much I yearn for dialogue and people cooperating to resolve something. I'm so tired of this almost consistent us versus them, winning versus losing attitude. I mean, I think the country wins when we're united. I actually think cooperation and collaboration makes the country win. I don't think bitter divisiveness is good for the country. I don't think winning 53% to 47% is winning. I think it's actually just some people eking out the other side. I think winning is when there's much stronger consensus and people agree to move forward together. I think that's much harder to achieve, but it's also much longer lasting and convincing. I think there's a lot more legitimacy when people win on that level, because it's not one group winning over the other, it's us winning together. Oh, what other comments we got? What's on your mind? What'd you think about the debate? Would you like to see another debate? Are you tired of the debates? Are you excited for the debates? What I saw was our next president. Solemnly, I am not optimistic for longevity of presidential candidates. So you're looking at the two and seeing that one of them very likely will become the president if one of the presidents gets sick or passes on. Yeah, I mean, it's very possible. I hope an event like that would serve to, if something like that would happen, I hope it would actually bring people together. I hope we could come together and grieve the loss of someone like that. Just seems to me that we're going through so much loss and so much pain these days. And I don't know about you, but I've been stuffing it away. I've been burying it, not even realizing it until I watch something and just start crying. Like, I hear a story about a nurse or something who has had to... I read something on Twitter where a nurse was saying that a lot of ICU nurses are sleeping prone just to kind of protect themselves, just in case they were to catch COVID, like preemptively. It's a lot. Okay, now we get the real comments. No, they have all been real comments, but we got the more confusing comments now. Oh my God, Seth Rogen, where's the bong, dude? No bong, just rum. You want some rum? Oh, people talking about taxes. What do we got? I was thinking about it. I tweeted a little bit about it with regards to taxes. I think we look at taxes as this like sin and this deep, harmful extraction that we give to this nebulous organization. And then other people get college or things for free. That part of me, I don't know why, it just came, I was thinking that what if we looked at it more that we're investing in our neighbors? That when I give money to taxes, I'm investing in my neighbors. I'm investing in their healthcare. I'm investing in their roads. I'm investing in their protection through the military. I'm investing in their protection. Their protection if they fail in business. The social safety net to catch them if they're falling. I'm investing in the people around me. And the more I thought about that, it's like maybe a lot of people don't want to invest in the people around them. I was talking with my mom about that, and she said, yeah, I know a lot of people who wouldn't like that idea at all. Oh, invest in a haircut and a beard trim. That's a good point. Yeah, I probably could. Oh, I can see how defensive I'm getting. I feel it right now. Like, you son of a... Yeah, part of it was to try to keep track of time. So to really talk about the hair thing, part of it was to try to keep track of time, especially with the beard. We've been in a pandemic for 6 or 7 months. I haven't shaved since the pandemic started. And considering a lot of the days are pretty much the same, I'm just trying to not have the days be exactly the same. And also, I was writing a book in the beginning of it. So part of it was to track kind of the book writing process and see how long that took. And throughout, my mom had been going through chemo. She started chemo at the pretty much beginning of the pandemic, the end of February. And so after I finished writing the book, I was like, let me just keep the beard. And I know it doesn't look good. I know the beard and the hair don't look good. I look back at some old profile photos and I'm like, man, why don't you look like that? But at the same time, what else am I doing? Why not? Sometimes it's fun just to change it up a little bit. And I think as a guy, there's not too much we can do to change it up with our appearance. I don't wear makeup. It's basically, I don't really color my hair. So I don't wear makeup. I don't color my hair. What else could I do? I could change my glasses. I can change my clothes. Or I can change let my hair grow out or my beard grow out. That's about it. Anyways, I think that's enough of me being defensive over the beard and the hair. Uh-oh. So what else? What other comments we got in here? Anyways, yeah, just talking about that idea about caring about other people and investing in other people. We don't want to invest in other people if we don't care about them. And I think I talked about this before, but this concept of to protect somebody, we have to connect with somebody. I call it connect to protect. That if I want to protect somebody, I have to connect with them first. And if I don't feel connected to them, then I won't really want to protect them. And so I look at society and I think so many of us feel disconnected, not only from strangers and other groups, but from our neighbors and our friends and our family, even from ourselves, especially in a crazy pandemic like this. Gosh, how many of us have been going through crazy emotional swings, but just kind of stuffing it down because just because. We lost a loved one, or we're scared that we're going to get it and get the virus and pass it on to somebody else, or we lost our house, or we're scared we're going to lose our house, or we haven't seen our friends or our family in a long time, or we miss human touch, or we lost our job, or we're making more money and we feel guilty that we're making more money and our neighbors lost their jobs. We want to help and we don't know how to help. We're trying to help as much as we possibly can. Ortega says, last year I paid $34,000 to protect others. Could you say a little more about that? I know it's through texting, so it may take you a little bit longer to say it than I can, but we'll come back to that. I hope you say a little more about what you mean by that. Yeah. I don't know. I'm going to go on for about another 5 minutes, but Oh, I appreciate y'all coming out tonight. I appreciate you having this space with me and this conversation. Aha. So Mortega saying, oh, we got my cousin joining in. Oh, that's great. Looking grizzly. Yeah, man. I'm trying to match you. All right. You get frustrated at times that others are not contributing a proportionally like investment. Yeah, it's tough, right? I mean, I think that's one of the hardest things in life is seeing things as unfair, that we're doing something and other people aren't doing it. It sucks, man. It sucks. Like, I can tell you on the side of a person who hasn't had a lot of money to give to be able to contribute as much lately, I feel really guilty and really ashamed and embarrassed sometimes that I can't contribute more financially. Like, it eats me up sometimes. So I hear you, and I wish I wish I could. Now you can argue that maybe if I wished I could, then I could work harder and make more money, and perhaps that's true. But yeah, man, I hear you. It's not fun when, like you said, when Trump is contributing only $750 to taxes. It's like, well, who am I? I'm working hard and I'm paying money, and then rich people don't even have to pay. They just dance around it. It's tough, man. It's what I wonder again with the taxes though is that why do so many of us see it as a game of how little tax we can pay in this country? Why do we hate taxes so much? What does it say about how much we care about the people in government and care about the people around us? How much does it say that we trust these people? And if the trust has been broken, how do we rebuild trust? Why don't we talk about rebuilding trust with the government? How do we rebuild trust with the government? Because the government is just us. Whether we want to believe it or not, the government is composed of American citizens. And how do we rebuild trust? I think one of the best ways is through apology, through forgiveness, through reconciliation, through opening up and being honest with each other. And sometimes that has to happen behind closed doors because it's really hard to open up on the internet. Like, I'm just flowing with this. I don't know who's going to show up, what they're going to say. I'm just trying to flow. But even in this situation, I still have a little control, but in other situations, it's really hard to open up. So how do we try to rebuild the trust? How do we try to repair the relationship? I was talking with a friend of mine earlier today who was talking about a relationship and said, oh, this guy doesn't like me. Oh, he doesn't want to be with me anymore because I didn't respond for like a week. I said, why didn't you respond? And she says, oh, because I didn't know if he liked me. I didn't want to scare him away. I didn't want to be too this and this. Okay, it's fine. And then she showed me what she said to him. And she said, oh, sorry, I didn't respond for a week. I got busy. And then blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you didn't tell him. Why didn't you tell him? And she says, oh, it's over. Relationship's over. It's not going to work. And I'm thinking, most relationships have fights. Relationships are much more about how we repair the relationships than how we build them. We need to maintain these relationships, and that requires repairing them when they break. If we can get good at preventing them from breaking and recognizing that they're going to break and repairing them when they do break, we can come back together. But that requires us wanting to do that. And she was like, it's over. What's the point? I'm like, do you want to fight for it? If you want to fight for it, we got to rebuild. Ortega says, in business school, we are taught that a technique to drive trust is a three-pronged approach. All right, I got the intro. I didn't get the three prongs yet. Yeah, it's I don't see a lot of that. I don't see a lot of the repair or the relationship rebuilding, the trust rebuilding happening in political conversations. Even in personal conversations, sometimes we step over the line. Sometimes we push too far. Sometimes we're joking around too much and we hurt the other person. Sometimes if we're lucky, they tell us or we recognize it. Other times they don't and they just go quiet. And then they hurt us by going quiet. And then, sometimes if we're lucky, we tell them, if they're lucky, we tell them that they hurt us by ignoring us. And we can start to rebuild the relationship and rebuild the trust and the care that we have for each other. But I don't see that in politics. Maybe it's because it doesn't happen on the political stage. Maybe it happens off stage. Like I say a lot when it comes to conflict in the house, most of us don't see our parents or our relatives resolve conflict because a lot of times it happens in the bedroom. It doesn't happen in front of the kids. So maybe it's happening. We're just not privy to it. But I would love to see more examples of it. I would love to see more kind of open-hearted repair. Do any of you see more examples of this? Am I just blind to it, or am I just hoping for something that's not? Maybe I just have too high of standards for it. I don't know. All right, we'll end in okay, we'll do another 5 minutes. Still got a lot to go. All right. Chewing ice on TV. I didn't know how that sounds. Okay, we got one thing. Clear intent of strategic intent. Why do we exist and are striving for? Number 2, clearly define roles and responsibilities. What is expected of each of us, and clear tie back to 1. So it sounds, and 3, allow for an environment of innovation. So for me, these sound like ways for very good of setting the foundation for trust. Basic clear intent of strategic intent basically say, why do we exist and what are we striving for? Like, why do we do what we do and what are we trying to do? Just being very clear on what we want to do and why we want to do it, I think is very helpful, because then people can align themselves if they like that, especially in a company standpoint. If a company says, I've worked for companies that could be quite opaque when it comes to what they wanted to do and the intent of the company. Not in like a nefarious way, but just, they said they wanted to do this, but I think they actually really wanted to do this. And my argument to them was, just tell me what you actually want to do, because then I can decide whether I want to be in or out or how I want to participate. And I agree that that can really help. Clearly define roles and responsibilities, what expected each of us, and clear tie back to number 1. I mean, I'd say, that's the way I'd reframe it, is us telling people what we want, what we expect of them, how we want them to behave, what we expect them to do, things like this, and the things that we want in life. Again, so that they can be more clear on our desires, our needs, our expectations. And they could respond as well, so we can come to a more clear understanding. So, mostly clear and open communication. And then an environment of innovation. I'd say a lot of this is letting people have the freedom to do things that they want to do, and letting people experiment and play. And especially in that last one, letting people fail and make mistakes, and letting people break the relationship and break things a little bit, and letting people repair it and rebuild it. So if someone makes a mistake, not saying, oh, you need to be thrown out of society, we're going to kick you out of the company, we're going to get rid of you because you did this. Instead, having more of that attitude of, listen, I think you're a really good person who did something, like did a bad thing. Or the way I'd say it more so is like, listen, what you did really pissed me off, or what you did really frustrated me. And I'm frustrated because I know you can do better. Like, I believe in you. I know how you're a freaking rock star. I mean, maybe not in that way, but this idea of like telling them that I'm angry because I care about them and because I want them to do well. And Mortega says failure is learning. Yeah, but how much space? Sorry, yeah, I agree. How often do we let people fail in the political space? We rip apart people's political careers for the last 20, 30, 40 years looking for one slice of failure, one glint of failure, and then running multiple $1 million ads against this person for that one failure. I don't want to live in a society where we throw people out with the bathwater. Oh, Why can't we forgive people and love people? Oh, we got a screenshot. Oh, should I make a good, like, what should I do? Should I turn up the mustache? Sure, go for it. Huh? Somebody said they're going to screenshot me. Now I'm a little worried. I don't know when they're going to screenshot. I appreciate that. I really appreciate that, because other people do it without saying it. And, they might catch me in some funny pose, and then that'll ruin my political career in 20 years from now. Man, I wish, gosh, I try to extend more grace and forgiveness to other people, because I wish that they would do the same to me. I don't want people to throw me out just because I did one thing or said one thing, or it's hard. Life's hard. It's impossible to be perfect. It's impossible to not hurt somebody. Man, sometimes we say things with the perfect intent. We really care about the person, and it destroys them. And we don't even know, because they don't tell us. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up here. I'll go with Mortega's comment here at the end, and if anyone else wants to throw some comments in, we'll finish with that and then head off for the night. So the two VP candidates, I felt that Harris provided a greater sense of achieving trust for the United States. I personally agree. I think that Harris and Biden in general seem to think that there's like 80% of the population, give or take, that's on their team. And then there's this like group of people that is not, this 20%. Whereas I think when I look at the Trump and, goodness, this rum's getting me. When I look at the Trump and Pence campaign, it looks more like they think 20% of the population is on their team and 80% is not. And ideally, I would like Biden and Harris to extend that to 100% and to condemn the behavior of people while still believing in the redemptive quality of the person. So to extend it a little bit farther, but I would agree, of the two platforms, I think they have the strongest chance for achieving more trust and more unity in this country. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm realizing I probably get more interaction running these shows at night than I do at 1 p.m. Monday through Friday. But anyways, I'm grateful for y'all chiming in. Hope to have you on more calls in the future, or more shows. It feels like a call, all these Zoom calls these days. But thank you all for chiming in, sharing in, and look forward to chatting more. And yeah, have a good night. Ciao.